Let me know if it is audible.
We are here.
It's audible?
Yes.
Here at my good school, things here are so cool. Together we learn, together we create, together we meditate. Everyone is welcome, teachers here are awesome. We learn good values, we learn many skills, we soar above the hills. Let's shout it out, hey, let's all be proud, hey, hats off to my good school. Just what we need, hey, for us to succeed, hey, are all here in my good school.
Over to ma'am.
Thank you, Manisha ma'am. So that was the anthem of the Sunday school. We read books on Sunday. I read a book called My Family and Other Animals, which is written by Gerald Durrell. We have read many chapters of the book. It's a very interesting book about Gerald's adventures on Corfu Island in Greece. Gerald was a child at that time, and his elder brother, he had two older brothers and an older sister. So his two brothers, his sister and his mother, they moved to Greece, to Corfu Island. And Gerald, ever since he was small, he had a great interest in any creature that lived. So while he was in Corfu, he would go on these adventures, collecting all kinds of creatures, watching animals and birds and insects and whatnot very carefully. And he talks about three of his very interesting tutors. We came across a new one just the other day called Peter, who had come from Oxford. And I just saw while ma'am was playing the anthem that there is a reflection on that chapter. Manisha ma'am, if you could display that page, just let's quickly read that, because that will give the participants a clear idea of what we had read last week. So we just quickly read that one reflection and then start with today's reading.
Can you see this, ma'am?
Yes, I can. All right. So here we have the session by Brinda ma'am and Ishika Singh of class 10B from, I think, Sunbeam School has written this. Let's just go quickly over this. Today, during the My Good School session, Brinda ma'am read the story, My Family and Other Animals. We learned about many different insects and other creatures. We also learned about a profession in which a person studies dead animals. In the story, Gerald got a new tutor named Peter, who was from Oxford. Gerald described him as quick-tempered, but later, because of the island's peaceful environment, Peter became more relaxed and calm. The story was very interesting and enjoyable. Brinda ma'am also discussed the wildlife sanctuary established by Anant Ambani in Jamnagar, Gujarat. It was a wonderful session and we learned many new things about nature and wildlife. Okay, so we have a few more. We have one more which says that in today's session, we explored the story, My Family and Other Animals. Through the story, we learned about many different creatures and insects. We also learned about a profession in which people study dead animals. And what's it called? Neither of you have written that. It's called taxidermy, right? We followed Gerald's adventures as he got a new tutor, Peter from Oxford. Gerald initially described Peter as quick-tempered, but the isle... Okay, so we have a little bit of repetition here. It doesn't matter. And so we will now go on to the main text, ma'am. Manisha ma'am, can you please display the text and we'll read further. I hope some of you will be adventurous enough to have a few experiences like Gerald did during your summer vacation. Maybe you should try doing something new. You won't be lucky enough to go to a place like Corfu and explore that place. But wherever you go for a vacation, maybe you could do some exploration there. Manisha ma'am, please display the main text.
Could you please repeat, ma'am?
Please display Gerald Durrell's textbook. We can start reading. Yes.
Is it visible?
Yes, it is. It is. All right. So we'll start from where ma'am has highlighted the line where we had stopped. I carried the indignant owlet back home in my pocket and introduced him to the family with a certain trepidation. Okay. Indignant, meaning a little stubborn, okay, not somebody who would easily give in. So owlet is a little one of an owl, and he carried this owlet back in his pocket to his family. You know that the family was very annoyed with him, and they had given him a separate room in his house, and they called it the bug room. So with a little trepidation, that means with a little doubt or with a little apprehension, he took the owlet back in his pocket to his house. To my surprise, he was greeted with unqualified approval, and no objection was raised to my keeping him. He took up residence in a basket kept in my study, and after much argument, he was christened Ulysses. Okay, some of you who've studied poetry till 10th or maybe even further would definitely have come across this legendary character called Ulysses. So I'm not going to spend time on Ulysses right now because it will take away our attention from the main text. So Ulysses is a legendary character, and there's a whole poem about Ulysses. So this owl was called Ulysses, right? From the first, he showed that he was a bird of great strength of character and not to be trifled with. Although he would have fitted comfortably into a teacup, he showed no fear and would unhesitantly attack anything and everyone regardless of size. As we all had to share the room, I felt it would be a good idea if he and Roger got on intimate terms. So as soon as the owl had settled down, I performed the introductions by placing Ulysses on the floor and telling Roger to approach and make friends. Roger had become very philosophical about having to make friends with the various creatures that I adopted, and he took the appearance of an owl in his stride. Wagging his tail briskly in an ingratiating manner, he approached Ulysses, who squatted on the floor with anything but a friendly expression on his face. He watched Roger's approach in an unwinking stare of ferocity. Roger's advance became less confident. Ulysses continued to glare as though trying to hypnotize the dog. So look at this. This is a huge dog versus a small, tiny little owl, which could easily fit into a teacup. That's how Gerald had described him. But the owl had so much of courage and so much of character that it kept on staring at Roger. And Roger was a little hesitant. He seemed to be a little wary of the owl. Ulysses continued to glare as though trying to hypnotize the dog. Roger stopped. His ears drooped, his tail wagging only feebly, and he glanced at me for inspiration. I ordered him sternly to continue his overtures of friendship. Roger looked nervously at the owl and then, with great nonchalance, walked around him in an effort to approach him from the back. Ulysses, however, had let his head revolve too and kept his eyes still fixed on the dog. Roger, never having met a creature that could look behind itself without turning around, seemed a trifle nonplussed. So we come to know about the characteristic of the owl. The owl can turn its head back without turning the rest of its body and see what is happening behind. Only some birds can do this, right? So after a moment's thought, he decided to try the skittish, let's have a jolly game approach. He lay down on his stomach, put his head between his paws, and crept slowly towards the bird, whining gently and wagging his tail with abandon. Ulysses continued to look as though he was stuffed. Roger, still progressing on his stomach, managed to get quite close. But then he made a fatal mistake. He pushed his woolly face forward and sniffed loudly and interestedly at the bird. Now, Ulysses would stand a lot, but he was not going to be sniffed at by a mountainous dog covered with black curls. He decided that he would have to show this ungainly and wingless beast exactly where he got off. He lowered his eyelids, clicked his beak, hopped up into the air, and landed squarely on the dog's muzzle, burying his razor-sharp claws in the black nose. Roger, with a stricken yelp, shook the bird off and retired beneath the table. No amount of coaxing would get him to come out until Ulysses was safely back in his basket. So did you see how courageous the owl was when Roger tried to play and came very close to it and sniffed at it? The owl attacked him, right? And so Roger just went and hid. So that's what it's all about, not size, but it's about your courage. It's about what you think about yourself with confidence that matters. When Ulysses grew older, he lost his baby down. Down means feathers, baby feathers. So as Ulysses grew older, he lost all these baby feathers and developed the fine ash gray, rust red, and black plumage of his kind, with the pale breast handsomely marked with Maltese crosses in back. Okay, so plumage means all the feathers of the wings put together. So as he grew, his feathers became fine ash gray and rust red in color, like the species has, his species has, and his pale breast was marked with Maltese crosses in black. Now, Maltese cross is a kind of a cross which is like a pattern. Actually, Maltese cross is also a pattern in embroidery. Okay, but a Maltese cross is different from the cross, ordinary cross that we see. A Maltese cross is like as if it has a design. So maybe sometime we should be able to see that also on Google. He also developed long ear tufts, which he would raise in indignation when you attempted to take liberties with him. As he was now far too old to be kept in a basket and strongly opposed to the idea of a cage, I was forced to give him the run of the study. He performed his flying lessons between the table and the door handle, and as soon as he had mastered the art, chose the pelmet above the window as his home and would spend the day sleeping up there, eyes closed, looking exactly like an olive stump. Okay, stump is that small little portion of a tree. If a tree is cut off and only that much is left, that's called the stump. If you spoke to him, he would open his eyes a fraction, raise his ear tufts, and elongate his whole body so that he looked like some weird, emaciated Chinese idol. Emaciated is weak, all worn out. If he was feeling particularly affectionate, he would click his beak at you, or as a great concession, fly down and give you a hurried peck on the ear. As the sun sank and the geckos started to scuttle about the shadowy walls of the house, Ulysses would wake up. So remember geckos? Those who have been with us in the last few weeks, do you remember what the word geckos means? Which creature is known as geckos? We see them very often everywhere, all around, even in our homes, in towns, we see geckos. What are geckos? Does anyone remember? Geckos, geckos. They're another name for lizards, wall lizards, garden lizards, right? He would yawn delicately, stretch his wings, clean his tail, and then shiver violently so that all his feathers stood out like petals of a wind-blown chrysanthemum. With great nonchalance, he would regurgitate a pellet of undigested food on the newspaper spread below for this and other purposes. Having prepared himself for the night's work, he would utter an experimental choo-hoo to make sure his voice wasn't trim, and then launch himself on soft wings to drift around the room as silently as a flake of ash and land on my shoulder. For a short time, he would sit there, nibbling my ear, and then he would give himself another shake, put sentiment on one side, and become businesslike. He would fly onto the windowsill and give another questioning to who, staring at me with his honey-colored eyes. This was the signal that he wanted the shutters open. As soon as I threw them back, he would float out through the window to be saluted for a moment against the moon before diving into the dark olives. A moment later, a loud challenging too-hoo, too-hoo would ring out, the warning that Ulysses was about to start his hunting. The length of time Ulysses spent on his hunts varied. Sometimes he would swoop back into the room after only an hour, and on other occasions he would be out all night. But wherever he went, he never failed to come back to the house between 9 and 10 for his supper. If there was no light in my study, he would fly down and peer through the drawing room window to see if I was there. If I was not there, he would fly up the side of the house again to land on my bedroom windowsill and tap briskly on the shutters until I opened them and served him with his saucer of mince or chopped chicken's heart or whatever delicacy was on the menu that day. When the last gory morsel had been swallowed, he would give a soft hiccuping chirrup, sit meditating for a moment, and then fly off the moon-bright treetops. Since he had proved himself an able fighter, Ulysses became fairly friendly towards Roger, and if we were going down for a late evening swim, I could sometimes prevail upon him to honor us with his company. He would ride on Roger's back, clinging tight to the black wool. If, as occasionally happened, Roger forgot his passenger and went too fast, or skittishly jumped over a stone, Ulysses' eyes would blaze. His wings flapped in a frantic effort to keep his balance, and he would click his beak loudly and indignantly until I reprimanded Roger for his carelessness. On the shore, Ulysses would perch on my shorts and shirt while Roger and I gamboled in the warm, shallow water. Ulysses would watch our antics with round and faintly disapproving eyes, sitting up as straight as a guardsman. Now and then, he would leave his post to skim out over us, click his beak, and return to shore. But whether he did this in alarm for our safety or in order to join in our game, I could never decide. Sometimes, if we took too long over the swim, he would get bored and fly up the hill to the garden, crying, "Too-hoo," in farewell. In the summer, when the moon was full, the family took to bathing at night. For during the day, the sun was so fierce that the sea became too hot to be refreshing. As soon as the moon had risen, We would make our way down through the trees to the creaking wooden jetty and clamber into the sea cow. With Larry and Peter on one oar, Margot and Leslie on the other, and Roger and myself in the bows to act as lookouts, we would drift down the coast for half a mile or so to where there was a small bay with a lip of white sand and a few carefully arranged boulders, smooth and still sun-warm, ideal for sitting on. We would anchor the sea cow in deep water and then dive over the side to gambol and plunge and set the moonlight shaking across the waters of the bay. When tired, we swam languidly to the shore and lay on the warm rocks, gazing up into the star-freckled sky. Generally, after half an hour or so, I would get bored with the conversation and slip back into the water and swim slowly out across the bay to lie on my back, cushioned by the warm sea, gazing up at the moon. One night, while I was thus occupied, I discovered that our bay was used by other creatures as well. Lying spread-eagled in the silky water, gazing into the sky, only moving my hands and feet slightly to keep afloat, I was looking at the Milky Way stretching like a chiffon scarf over the sky and wondering how many stars it contained. I could hear the voices of the others laughing and talking on the beach, echoing over the water, and by lifting my head, I could see their position on the shore by the pulsing lights of their cigarettes. Drifting there, relaxed and dreamy, I was suddenly startled to hear, quite close to me, a clop and gurgle of water, followed by a long, deep sigh, and a series of gentle ripples rocked me up and down. Hastily, I righted myself and trod water, looking to see how far from the beach I had drifted. To my alarm, I found that not only was I some considerable distance from the shore, but from the sea cow as well. And I was not at all sure what sort of creature it was swimming around in the dark waters beneath me. I could hear the others laughing on the shore at some joke or other, and I saw someone flip a cigarette end high into the sky like a red star that curved over and extinguished itself at the rim of the sea. I was feeling more and more uncomfortable, and I was just about to call for assistance when some 20 feet away from me, the sea seemed to part with a gentle swish and gurgle. A gleaming back appeared, gave a deep, satisfied sigh, and sank below the surface again. I had hardly time to recognize it as a porpoise before I found I was right in the midst of them. They rose all around me, sighing luxuriously, their black backs shining as they humped in the moonlight. There must have been about 8 of them, and one rose so close that I could have swum forward 3 strokes and touched his ebony head. Heaving and sighing heavily, they played across the bay, and I swam with them, watching fascinated as they rose to the surface, crumpling the water, breathed deeply, and then dived beneath the surface again, leaving only an expanding hoop of foam to mark the spot. Presently, as if obeying a signal, they turned and headed out of the bay towards the distant coast of Albania, and I trod water and watched them go, swimming up the white chain of moonlight, backs agleam as they rose and plunged with heavy ecstasy in the water as warm as fresh milk. Behind them, they left a trail of great bubbles that rocked and shone briefly like miniature moons before vanishing under the ripples. All right, so does anybody here know what a porpoise is? Okay, it's felt so much like a tortoise, but a porpoise is nowhere near like a tortoise. Has anyone read or seen one? But it's a sea creature that you must have guessed, and it's a longish creature. It's ebony, so it's blackish in color, blackish blue in color. And so you can Google it and look for a picture. How many of you over here have read Tintin? Does anyone here read Tintin, or is there anyone who's a fan of Tintin? I'm sure Jugjeev sir is. Yes.
Yes.
And sir, if you remember, Captain Haddock had this string of, words that he would use when he was excited and angry. And one of the words that he often used was porpoise, right? He would keep using this word. And it's very interesting to remember or be reminded of this. So you see, children, there are so many things when you read this entire chapter, you come across so many things, so many references. And here is a boy or a man who has written this book, had never been to a formal school, but he was so well informed. Look at the metaphors he's using. Look at all the comparisons he's making. And we have to dive into history. We have to dive into natural history also to know about the things that he talks about. So that's what education is all about, when you're able to connect whatever you read to many different things. So the moment I came across this word porpoise, and I was reminded about it even more so because yesterday I was in a bookshop and I came across a book which has been just published. It's called Blistering Barnacles, which was the favorite phrase used by Captain Haddock. And this book has all the expletives that Haddock had used and the meanings and the references to it. It's a very interesting book to be bought by somebody who's been a Tintin fan, right? So children, if you haven't read Tintin, this is summer vacation. Discover Tintin, read it. It's a, as you call it today, it's a graphic novel. It's a comic, as we would call it, and one of the best. Tintin and Asterix and Obelix. If you haven't read that, you haven't had a good childhood, I would say. So do make an effort to lay your hands on a Tintin and read it. You'll enjoy it, right? And if you can, get this book also of Gerald, or you want to hear it once again, because this is there, the recording is there on YouTube. If you want to hear this once again, listen to it, and then try and find out more and more about a lot of things which we have not really discussed. What is the reference here to the coast of Albania? Where is Albania? Try and find out where that is, right? Try and look up a picture of the creatures that we just read about, right? And you will discover so many other things also. I think it's time for this session to be over. So I would hand you all back to Jugjeev sir and Manisha ma'am for the rest of the session. Thank you all for being with us on a Sunday morning, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to Gerald Durrell as much as I enjoyed reading it. Thank you. Thank you, Jugjeev sir, and thank you, Manisha ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Always fascinating. Porpoise, I'd forgotten what it was, so I did Google it.
Yes.
And that resembles a dolphin is actually a mammal.
Absolutely. Yes, it does resemble a dolphin a lot. And I think, I was just visualizing this whole scene that Gerald has described. And imagine a whole lot of them together in one place. And the way he talks about them playfully swimming in the water, that's something fascinating. And if children can visualize it, I'm saying children again, because there are a lot of students here. And I think I would definitely urge the students who have a more vivid imagination than most of us here to be able to close their eyes and imagine the whole thing as described in all these pages. Every paragraph has a whole scene which can actually be drawn or enacted or put together as a film, right? So do try and do this, and you will find that you are richer by all these experiences that you get to hear about. Thank you once again, and over to you, Jugjeev sir.
In fact, I have a question for the children. Ulysses, I mean, how does the owl come across to the children?
Yes.
How does it? How does the owl seem? Does it seem stupid? Doesn't seem smart? How does the owl seem? यहाँ पे तो हम उल्लू बोल देते हैं as a derogatory term, but Ulysses seems fairly smart to me at least, right?
Absolutely. And in English, sir, there is this comparison we say as wise as an owl, the wise old owl, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Actually, even in India, the owl is considered to be a symbol of good luck, and it is Lakshmi ji's Vahan. It's the vehicle of Lakshmi ji. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the barn owl because there are different types of owls.
Yes,
I think Ulysses
there are
is a
different
stork
types of
owl,
owls. Yes.
and barn owl is Lakshmi ji's Vahan.
Vahan.
Yeah,
Yes.
and what
Akshita
we
has written something.
yeah, the more common owls that we see around are actually spotted owls, but one does see barn owls also. At least in Gurgaon, I've seen a
Yes,
lot of them, and
absolutely.
and because it goes back to Greek mythology of owls being wise,
True.
and so that's the dilemma, because the actions of Ulysses suggest that he's fairly smart.
Very smart and very courageous, as we just discovered.
Yeah.
And another beautiful thing about this entire book, or whatever other books that you might read about by Gerald Durrell, you will all discover that he treats every creature like a human being. And he's talking about them with all the attributes of a human being. Okay, somebody wants to know what a chrysanthemum is. A chrysanthemum is a flower. Okay,
A very
chrysanthemum,
pretty flower.
very pretty. It comes in different colors. The season of chrysanthemum just got over a few months ago, but chrysanthemum is very common in India also, right? So you can find out what is its Indian name, chrysanthemum, and you can look up pictures of chrysanthemum too. All right, so I can go on and on about Gerald, sir, so I'm not going to eat into your time. Please carry on.
Yeah. So thank you, Brinda ma'am. I've put a word in the chat. Does anybody relate with it? Okay, has anybody heard of this word? It came in the newspapers yesterday for a reason. Bromocryptine. Okay, I don't know what it meant. I looked it up, but that's not the point. This is a word spelled out by a 12-year-old in the US to win the the spelling competition.
Yeah. The spelling
12-year-old, right? So it just fascinated me that a 12-year-old who knew such big words. Okay, so I think like Akshita, there may be some other. Yes, Shubham, it is. It's part of it goes into making medicine for Parkinson's disease, is what I read. Right, but that's the word. This was the tiebreaker question, in which a boy called Shrey, who's 12 years old, won the competition in the US the day before yesterday, or maybe the day before that. Came in the newspapers yesterday. So I know Akshita is new. So Akshita, as Brinda ma'am explained, we try and read a few books here, and the idea is to help you appreciate reading and get you to read, because once you read, you start to reflect, and once you start to reflect, your full world changes. I'm absolutely certain that self-awareness is a superpower, and reflection is a means to gain that superpower. So reflection is very important, and that's why I raised the question around the owl. So while we were reading this, it struck me that Ulysses was a really smart creature, but why in India do we call? I mean, that we look down on the owl some ways, right? You use it in a derogatory way. Okay, so what we're trying to do in the Sunday school, we also have. I'm not sure about diabetes. What I read is about Parkinson's, Akshita, but I'm not sure. Uh, we also have the Joy of Learning Diaries, and Manisha ma'am had showed that to us uh, right at the beginning as per Brinda ma'am's request. So our idea is that we read, then what you think, some thoughts that come to you, you write about them, because writing helps you think better, right, and also able to express yourself. Communication, written communication has not gone out of fashion, may not be so much written, more maybe via emails and stuff today, but still, communication is important, and writing continues to be important. So we want you to write. Also, the sessions are recorded and are available on the My Good School channel on YouTube. So that's the other way if you miss it. Mostly on all Sundays, we will read these three books. And I will just introduce my book, which I'm going to read. And which reminds me, Manisha ma'am is reading a book by Ruskin Bond. And I don't know if you have access to the WhatsApp group for My Good School. Sandeep sir posted a YouTube video and an interview with Ruskin Bond, and he's written and his new books, and he's just turned 90 and is looking really nice and fit. And so you may want to look at that video and also get that book. I think one book was about how to be happy, is what I remember. So that's the thing we do. We read. We try and think about what we read. We try and talk. We try and have a dialogue. We reflect, write, send them into Manisha ma'am. When you go to the Joy of Learning Diaries, you will have her email ID right there on top, and I'm sure Manisha ma'am will put it in the chat as well. So if you want to reflect and send something, you don't have to reflect on something that we've read, something that occurs to you in the course of the week, today, tomorrow, whenever in the week, something that occurs to you, a thought, you want to write about it, please go ahead, share it with us. And you can also watch what happened in the YouTube channel. One, we've been having Karthik sir come and talk to us about communication first, and the last few times he talked to us about mental health, and those are really important tips. So if you want to go back and look at them, please do that. So Manisha ma'am, let's get on with the book that I'm reading. What you're looking for is in the library, is the book that I'm reading, and it's by an author called Michiko Aoyama. Michiko Aoyama is a Japanese author. This book was written in Japanese and translated to English by Alison Watts, and this book was published in 22. So the language is fairly modern, and obviously captures the world that we live in today. This book has five different chapters, which five different stories, and this is the third story we are reading. We're reading about a lady called Natsumi, who's 40 years old, and she is working in the information services department of publishing company. She used to be in the editing side earlier, and she loved that job. But then she got pregnant and she was going to have a baby, so she went off on maternity leave. and the company decided to move her out of that department because they felt that with the baby, she needs to spend time with the baby. And in Japan, as you know, they work 8 hours, so they moved her there, and she's not happy, with the job, and she's finding parenting also very, very stressful, and she's torn between her career and being a good mother. Uh, Her husband Shujo is, like most Japanese men, works very hard, keeps long hours. So he wants to help her, but he's not able to physically spend much time. And the area that they live in has a community center and a library. And to help pass the weekend where Shujo is not there, Natsumi takes her daughter Futaba to this library, and all the stories we've read are, are set in the same place, same area, and the librarian is the common character in all the stories, and uh, she gives books to read and also gives a gift to most of the characters whom we are familiar, whom we are reading about. And so that part has just happened. And what she is given, Natsumi, is a book called Door to the Moon, and she's given, a small felted woolen object, which is like a blue globe with the green and yellow pattern of the earth, basically. And so she's just given that gift to Natsumi, and so let's read on from here. In the world of astrology, the moon signifies mothers, wives, incidents from childhood, emotions, the flesh, changes, and so on. The moon signifies mothers and wives. That wasn't what I had been led to believe. So let me ask you, how do you think of your mother? If you had to describe something in nature, give an analogy of something in nature for your mother, what would it be? Right? Natsumi doesn't like, doesn't think moon is what it is, right? What do you have anything that you can describe her by? Anything? Any thoughts? Anybody? If you want to be unmuted, you can raise your hand, and Manisha ma'am will unmute you. That's the model we follow because we are on webinar mode. Otherwise, you can put it in chat, right? So, question really is that Natsumi doesn't think the moon signifies mothers and wives, right? But in astrology, that's what it does. But she doesn't sort of relate to it. So the question for you is, how do you, what analogy can you think of for your mother as far as nature is concerned? Anybody, any thoughts? Okay, so let's
You have
read that.
raised your hand. You want to speak?
Right, so that's good. Sunflower, good one. Colorful flower, she has different experience with her. Yes,
Sir,
that's
kind towards sweet,
sorry, say that again.
kind to
No, Manisha ma'am, did you hear that?
Kind, he said, I think.
Kind, yes,
kind
of course, of
towards
course.
me. Yeah.
But something with nature, right? Like you have somebody put in the chat like a sunflower, like a flower, colorful flower. So something related to nature, like a rose, Talat is saying. Right? Okay, so let's see what Natsumi thinks. What about the old adage that a mother is the sun in a family? And the reason why a mother is always supposed to be cheerful and smiling. My curiosity piqued as got raised. I traced back to earlier in the section where I found something profoundly interesting. Profoundly is extremely. Apparently, the overlapping of the image of the swollen belly of a pregnant woman's body with the moon is due to the fact that the menstrual cycle and the lunar cycle are in sync. This was followed by observations about its being symbolic both of virginity and of motherhood, with the virgin moon goddess Artemis and the Virgin Mary being given as examples. Right? The lunar cycle is 28 days and the menstrual cycle is 28 days. So that's why the comparison. Right? Interesting. I like the author's style. The writing was lovely, easy to read and understand. I was heartened also by the fact that this book was about the moon rather than astrology. That gave me more of an affinity with it. Affinity means like a relationship, closeness, attraction. What sold me, however, was Yukari Ishii's profile describing her not as an astrologist but a writer. Curious to know more, I decided to borrow it so I could read it at my leisure. Returning to the kids' space, I located the three books Miss Tomachi, who's a librarian, had recommended, as well as Barefoot Gerald. Barefoot Gerald is about centipedes, and her daughter's already, expressed a love for that. She loves that book, which Fataba could not be parted from. Nozomi made me a borrower's card, and I took all five books out on loan. Fuchan carried, sockless inside her shoes, Fataba clutched at barefoot Gerald. Thank you, centipede and cockroaches, for coming to my rescue this weekend. My gratitude to this author was immense. Another thing I never knew about children until I had one myself is that it is simply impossible to read your own book with a small child in the vicinity. It was Monday morning before I could get past the first few pages of Door to the Moon on the train going to work. In my Mila days, Mila is the magazine she used to be involved in sub-editing in the same company. In the Mila days, I used to have no reservations about reading at my desk, since anything could be a potential source of ideas. But in information resources, I hesitated to do any general reading, just in case my colleagues might think I was slacking. I think you all understand the word slacking. We used to use a lot of it when I was in school, I remember. I just sat down to sort out through the mountains of paperwork on my desk when I heard my name called from the doorway. Looking up with a start, I saw Kizawa standing there. I didn't know her well because she had transferred from another company to join the Mila team before I went on maternity leave. She brought with her a reputation as a high flyer from a previous position working on another publication, and rumor had it that she had been headhunted by a company president. Uh, headhunting is a common thing in the corporate world. When you're looking for people, you're looking for somebody to come and work in your organization, and a headhunter is somebody who helps you do that. And I mean, as the word suggests, the head is hunted, so that's where I assume it's come from. So it's a means of recruiting people. I knew she was single and about the same age as me, but that was all. The fact I didn't know her well might have been a contributing factor, but she cultivated an overtly blasé attitude that really got under my skin. Blasé is a don't care type of attitude. Somebody who's coming across as nothing is sort of bothering them. Right? Not to mention that she had taken over from me as the contact for Madame Mizue. Another reason I preferred to steer clear of her. To cap it all, while I was on maternity leave, Kizawa was appointed a deputy editor-in-chief. She thrust a sheet of paper at me. Can you get this for me? I took the document from her. It was a request form for a catalogue of quality brand of bags. She obviously She'd obviously come to the door and called to get my attention because she thought my middle-aged male co-workers wouldn't relate to this. Or was she purposely trying to shove her work at Mila in my face? Will you be able to get hold of it this week? She asked coolly. I noticed the bags under her eyes. Bags under her eyes? What are bags under your eyes? As you get older, you may notice in older people there is a little bit of puffy skin under the eyes, right? That's what she's referring to. Can also happen if you don't sleep enough. She wore a loose knit top and jeans and straggly ends of her untidy hair. Straggly is unkempt, it's just let by themselves, right? Were held back with a clip. Her outfit told me she was preparing to stay up all night if necessary. Today was the monthly proofreading deadline for Mila. A dark, miserly, slowly welled up inside me. I used to be in her shoes. Doesn't make sense. A dark, miserly. I guess it's a translation. Yes, I think I can do that, I replied, with a determined, bright smile to cover my hostility. Is today proofreading? I added. Kizawa patted her hair. Yeah. So I just wanted to point out to you, see, that Natsumi and Kizawa have had no interaction so far. This is the first time there is any interaction between them. But she has taken over the job that Natsumi was doing earlier. Natsumi really wanted back, right? And she has heard things about her, high flyer, headhunted, and all that. So she's created a impression of her, right? And we do that with many people, right? We ourselves do it with a lot of people. But this may or may not be right because you don't really know the person, right? So Natsumi has also painted this picture, and she's already, as she herself is admitting, she's hostile towards her, right? And she has no reason to be because the company decided to move her out. Kizawa was given the job, so Kizawa has not done anything to harm Natsumi in any way, right? But Natsumi still has those feelings towards her. Many times, this is what happens, right? Uh, Whatever we attribute things to other people which may or may not necessarily be true, and no communication happens, and misunderstandings is the next thing that will happen after this. If you continue in this path, in this methodology where you making assumptions about the person without really knowing the person. Okay, so I think it's important that we hear the other person, interact with the other person to actually form an impression about them. Anybody, any thoughts on that? Any thoughts? Any stories? Proofreading is it's like when you write something down, you read it again before you submit it to your teacher to see if there are mistakes or not. That's what proofreading is, right? What is the meaning of motherhood? Harish is asked. Hansh is asking. Anybody? Would you like to tell Hansh the meaning of motherhood? Somebody, please help. What is the meaning of motherhood? What is the meaning of motherhood? Anybody want to help Ansh with that question? Meaning of motherhood. Okay, please put it in chat for Ansh. Yes, I can think I can do that, I replied with a determined bright smile to cover my hostility. Is today proofreading? I added. Kizawa patted her head. Yes. Yeah. Lucky you. Being an editor is so rewarding. This is intended as light small talk. Kizawa's response, however, was to look away for a moment. Then, with an awkward smile, she said, but it feels like I'm always at work and never at home. Sometimes I don't even make the last train and have to cough up for a taxi at my own expense. Just once, I'd like to leave office on time too. Two, a dull pain burned in my chest. Right? She's thinking of herself because she leaves at 5 p.m. And even when I do get home early, there's nobody there. It's lonely, she continued. What could I say to that? Nothing. I merely tried to smile diplomatically. Right? Does everybody know what a diplomat is? Do you know what a diplomat is? Who is a diplomat? Can you give me a name of a diplomat? Can you give me the name of a diplomat? Do you know what a diplomat is? What is a diplomat? Our current foreign minister, Jay Shankar, what is the job he had earlier? One of the jobs he had, he was the ambassador to China, right? So he was a diplomat. A diplomat in this context, what we're reading here, yes, Vaishnavi says, person whose job is to maintain relationship with other people, countries. So if you want to maintain a relationship with somebody, uh, you know, you will come across as, how will you come across if you want to maintain a relationship? Vaishnavi, let's take this one step further, right? So if you want to maintain relationships, how will you come across? So Vaishnavi says a person whose job is to maintain relationship with other countries. Officially represents their countries, right? Is another explanation. So how will this person act, right? How will this person act? What will this person be like? What do you think? What are the characteristics of this person? Yes, communication, negotiations, yes, and tactful, right? So you will come across as tactful. You will come across as always in control of yourself. That's how you will come across. Yeah, could be clever, witty, humor the way, uh, formal, straightforward person. There's something in there what Shobhan is saying. You have to be considered trustworthy, right? So that's an important part. Communication, Talat says, yes, absolutely. So I merely tried to smile diplomatically, right? So diplomatically means tactfully, because she didn't know what to say, because it's a very personal thing suddenly that Kizawa started saying, right? It's lonely and she doesn't know Kizawa at all. So you just smile diplomatically. Was it my imagination? Was I right in thinking that Kizawa sounded completely jealous of me? The idea of a haggard and worn out, choking on her jealousy of me was a thought I found disturbing. Right? Haggard is old and worn out is actually haggard. Right? Why don't you quit if you want to go home so badly? I wanted to yell at her. You chose to accept the job. You're in it because you want to be. Right? So the fact that she said she's lonely and stays late has not evoked any sympathy and Natsumi clearly. Right? She's still angry. Yes, Ananya, communication. But I knew it cut both ways. I had made my own choices too. I chose to have a child. But am I not supposed to want both? Is it too much to want to have a child and a satisfying career? Am I not allowed to voice my dissatisfaction? Okay, now two questions here. I mean, we've been reading, right, and some of you have been there earlier as well, of how frustrated Natsumi is, uh, you know, in terms of juggling between her work, her daughter, the house, and the fact that she's got a job that she doesn't really like anymore, right? So, do you have any advice for her, or do you have any comments on how she's thinking about this, right? Or do you want to comment on, am I not supposed to want both as a woman? I mean, isn't it fair that she can have a career and also have a child? Any comments, any thoughts? Right? Put it in chat or get unmuted and talk, please. Somebody's saying Kizab. Kizab is actually over here the name of this person. So Kizaba is the name. Okay, anybody, any thoughts on what I just said? Right. You all are going to grow up. Many of you, I'm sure, hopefully, many of you will have a career and have families. You will face this situation. Right. So, what do you think about it? Is it okay for her to want to have a child and a career? Yes, so Akansha agrees. She's arguing right, as women can have both career and a child. Yeah. So, but obviously, as we are seeing, uh, it is difficult to juggle both, right? And you will see, in this part as well, that you know there is. I mean, she's has a slightly disproportionate burden of the parenting in her life, right? Because the husband, travels a lot and not able to contribute as much. It may be related to the culture of Japan, but this lady's name who's currently the sub editor is Kizawa. Yeah, Vaishnavi says completely all right to manage both. So that's the key part, Vaishnavi, how to manage both, right? That's the key part, how to manage both. And so clearly, Natsumi hasn't figured out how to manage both so far, right? And that's the challenge, right? Okay, let's come down to the next question. Am I not allowed to voice my dissatisfaction? So tell me, if you're dissatisfied with something, is it good to voice it? Not good to voice it. What do you think? If you're dissatisfied with something, you don't like something, should you be talking about it or should you not be talking about it? Tell me. Either unmute yourself and talk or put it in chat, please. Natsumi is asking, am I not allowed to voice my dissatisfaction? What do you do when you're not happy, when you're dissatisfied? What do you do? Right? When you're unhappy, when you're dissatisfied, what do you do? Nisha ma'am has put, made sure that you can know what the question I'm asking, like highlighting it. So what do you all think?
I talk to my family members about it.
Yes, you talk, right? And the key here is really to be able to talk about it in a calm manner, right? Exactly as Vaishnavi said, you should tell that we are dissatisfied with the reason, but not talk badly to others. Yes, thank you for that, Vaishnavi. Yes, that's the way to deal with this. Because if you're dissatisfied with something, others don't may or may not know, right? So you have to let them know, right, that you're not happy with something. It's perfectly fine. If you don't tell, what happens? What will happen if you don't tell? What happens if you don't tell? Anybody, what happens if you don't tell and you keep it inside you? What happens? What happens if you don't tell? It gets bottled up inside you. It creates frustration. It'll come out some other time in some other way. Right? So you shouldn't keep it bottled up for that reason. I stood there.
That thing will
Mute.
that thing will repeat again and again in our mind, and
Sorry,
this
say that
satisfies
again.
us. So that thing will repeat again and again in our mind, and this satisfied us with our opinions.
Right.
He's saying that will happen again and again in our life.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Because they don't know. You haven't said anything to them. So that's precisely right. You should tell we're dissatisfied. The reason we're not tired. Yeah, you will become frustrated, and they will do it always. Yeah, exactly. Right? They don't know. I stood there, mute, until Kizawa broke the silence. Oh, and another thing. Miss Kanata is giving a talk the day after tomorrow. Instantly, I perked up. Madam Mizue, we aren't the sponsor, so there's no obligation. But the editor in chief is making noises about someone putting in an appearance. My hands are full, though, so I wondered if you could go, Miss Sakitani. Yes! Kizawa's shoulders gave a startled twitch at my reaction. Okay, I'll send details by email. Thanks. I'll get the chief to contact the head of information resources and square it with him too. This last was said with her back already turned as she walked off down the corridor. I don't care what she thought of me. I was simply glad that she had asked if I was going to see Madame Mizue. Yes, as her former editor, at last I had something to do that was worth befitting an editor. During my lunch break the next day, I went to a bookshop and bought Madame Mizue's latest novel. Today was its launch. The reason for the talk, I assume, PR for her latest book. PR is public relations. The event was to be held the next day in a city hotel from 11 a.m. I emailed Madame Mizue to say I would attend and received a reply inviting me to have tea afterwards. My cup runneth over. I was so thrilled. My cup runneth over? What does that mean? What does that mean? Now, if you can picture a cup running over, that's exactly what it means. She was just filled. Okay, but she was thrilled. She was very happy. So the cup runneth over. On the train going to collect Fataba, I tried to race through the new book, but didn't even get halfway through. Tonight, I would simply have to get Fataba to sleep early. The whole way home from daycare, Fataba was singing a song she had learned that day. She was so obsessed with it that even after we got home, she hummed it endlessly to the accompaniment of her own dancing. After her bath, I tucked her into her futon. Futon is a mattress in the Japanese use. It's like a you can think of it as a cotton ka gadda which you can move around. I tucked her into her futon, lay down beside her, then turned the bedroom light low and patted her rhythmically on the chest to lull her to sleep. Off to bye-byes now, but she would not fall asleep. Instead, wide awake, she raised her voice mischievously loud and started to sing again. That's enough. Close your eyes, I chided her. This had the opposite effect. No, Fu-chan sing song. Even more excited now, she jumped up and planted her feet on the futon with arms akimbo. Arms akimbo is putting arms on your waist and the elbows pointing out. Oh, where was Shuji? If I only knew when he would be home, it would be a whole lot less stressful just to know that help was on the way. But I hadn't heard a thing from him. Eventually giving up, I turned on the lights and lay down next to Futaba, then opened up Madame Mizue's book. Futaba continued to sing before opening the picture book next to her pillow, no doubt in imitation of me. She looked at the pictures while chatting away. I suspected she wanted me to read to her, but I ignored her and continued to read my own book. Every minute was precious. Madame Mizue's novel was everything I expected. I could imagine the discussions she and her editor would have had, and in my head tried to dissect their approach to the story. Dissect? Some of you who are class 10 may know dissect. You may have actually dissected something in your bio lab, right? So dissect is opening up. If only I could do that, but it was hopeless. At some point, I lost concentration, and in spite of myself, I dropped off to sleep. I didn't even notice Shuji arrived home, and my book was still not finished. The next morning, Futaba awoke sneezing and with a runny nose. I put my hand to her forehead apprehensively. Apprehensively means scared. Not too hot. With a prayer in my heart, I held her in my arms and stuck the thermometer under her arm. Is Futaba all right? Shuji asked casually. It was my fault. I'd fallen asleep with the air conditioner on. I was angry with him for not setting off the off switch timer when he'd gone to bed. The thermometer beeped. Her temperature was 37.8 degrees. That's 37.8 degrees is in which scale? Celsius or Fahrenheit? 37.8 is Celsius, right? But we normally think of temperature when we do for fever in Fahrenheit, right? So 37.8 is actually 100.4. A little on the high side, but not too much cause for concern. Please let her be all right today, of all days. So if you have 100 fever, what will your mother think? Will your mother think it's high or will your mother think it's low? 100.4 fever, what happens in your house? 100.4 is high, 100.4 is okay, not to worry about. What do you all think there?
Sir, it's very high.
Yeah, that's my impression too. 100.4. If my children had 100.4, I mean, we wouldn't think of sending them to school, right? But obviously, in their culture, this is okay. These are not things that are. This is, I mean, in your culture, right? For lack of any other word, I'm using the word culture. But this is how our belief is, right? But that's not their belief, right? Otherwise, she wouldn't have sent her, right? Hesitantly, I asked Fuji, I don't suppose. What? No. What? I'm sure there'll be no problem. But just in case there's a call from daycare today, I don't suppose you could pick her up? No, can't do that. I have to go to Makuhari today. I was just checking. I got Futaba ready and took her to daycare. On the train, I continued speed reading Madame Mizue's book. I couldn't very well not know how it ended. Somehow I managed to scan through it entirely and reach the end. But this was not how I wanted to read anything written by Madame Mizue. I would have far preferred to be reading her in a quiet place, sitting down and relaxed. Yet it couldn't be helped. Thanks to Kizawa alerting my boss, I was able to excuse myself at 10 a.m. and went to the bathroom to freshen up. Just as I was leaving, my smartphone rang. Tsukushi Deke appeared on the screen. Ignore it. Pretend you didn't know. Now is time to step up as a parent. Two voices wrestled in my mind. Right? So suppose you are in that situation, what would you do? Right? She's getting two voices, right? And this must be happening to you also, right? You have to make a decision or something happens and different thoughts come into your mind. Should I do this? Should I do that? What do you think she should do? Ignore it, pretend she didn't notice it, call from daycare, or does she go to the daycare? What should she do? What do you think? What do you think she should do? Go to daycare or go for the session she wanted so badly? She'd worked with Madame Mizue before, she'd been looking forward to this, and now the call has come and, obviously it's because she already knows that she had fever when she went, so this must be the problem. So what do you think she should do? Anybody? What do you think she should do? Tell her editor-in-chief to give her some time to get her child and then return to her work. No, but she's going to a function. We say she should go to daycare. Yeah, because she has to attend a function, right? So she can't, either she misses it. Yes, Manisha, ma'am.
If I want to go to some place and I'm not able to go because my child is not well, so first I'll take the call, find out the situation, make alternative arrangement, and then go for the program. Because in
Yeah.
the end, both is going to haunt me, not going for the program and not taking care of my child. So some alternative I'll do beforehand only, and then I'll proceed.
Yes, and I'm sure you've faced that situation many times in your life, Manisha, ma'am.
Certainly, sir.
So let's see what she does. The phone stopped ringing and switched to voicemail. I waited for the recorded message to finish while pressing the button and putting the phone to my ear. Mayu, Futaba's class teacher, had left a message to say Futaba had a fever and to please come and collect her. What if I pretend I didn't hear this? Daycare should contact my office and someone there would try and phone me. Perhaps I would just ignore the call and say I'd left my smartphone at home. That would be one option. Or I could give up on the idea of tea with Madame Mizue and contact daycare as soon as the talk finished to say I could hurry and be there by 2 p.m. That much at least would be forgivable, wouldn't it? It wasn't as if Futaba wasn't in a safe place at daycare. An image of Futaba's tearful face came into my mind. Maybe she had warmed out from under her duvet last night. Duvets are like a light reside. And then chilled by the air conditioner. Now she could be suffering from high fever. That was all my fault because I did not get her to sleep early and fell asleep myself instead. A wave of guilt washed over me at the memory of her opening up the picture book while I ignored her. I was a terrible mother. If I didn't go to the talk, it would no doubt confirm the opinion Kizawa and the Mela deputy editor-in-chief had of me as unreliable. But if I didn't go, it wouldn't be a disaster. It's just that I wanted to go. I screwed my eyes shut typed. Taking a deep breath, I rang a daycare bell. Now you see how she's making a decision? Right. She's saying, okay, I do this. This is what will happen if I do this. This is what will happen. But if I do this, it's not the end of the day. The reason I want to do this is because I really want to go. And so, so that's how it's helping her make a decision. On my way, I phoned Kizawa to tell her I couldn't go to the talk. That's fine. Take care, was all she said. I do not understand that woman at all. When I arrived, Futaba pattered over with a big smile on her face. She looked perfectly all right to me. Look at you. I thought you had temperature of 37.8 and no energy. Mayu came over. She had just turned 28 and had only recently been appointed as class teacher. She looked peaky earlier. Peaky is unwell, but was only a bit sleepy after all, it seems. Her temperature is down to 37.1 now. That was a relief, but I felt despondent. Despondent is sad that I needn't have come. When today was such a special day, before I knew it, I was crying. Oh dear, you must have been worried, Mayu said with an understanding smile. In a low, strangled voice that I didn't even recognize as mine, I turned to her and said, why is it always this? Mayu looked shocked. She probably had no idea what I meant. But almost always it is women who pick up children from daycare. Why is the parent who gives birth always expected to make the biggest career sacrifice? Right? This is a fairly, a common thing to happen, right? Especially if, you know, mother is also pursuing a career, right? Do you have any advice for Natsumi? What should she do? This is how she's feeling, right? She's feeling that she's having to spend a disproportionately high amount of time in parenting compared to her husband, right? What should she do? Any thoughts? What should she do? In many cultures, you know, women would assume that they have to do it, and there's no dialogue on the matter. But in many cultures, a dialogue is okay on this, and you can sort of work out between mother and the father how this will happen. Clearly, in India, uh, things are changing in terms of the involvement of fathers in bringing up children. What do you think, Manisha, ma'am? Is it changing? Not changing? What are your thoughts?
Uh, yes, it is changing, certainly. Um, Both the parents, especially the father, started taking care of the child, and paternity leave is also being given to the parents, like both of them together. But still, in Indian household, it is always the opposite. Many of the households, not all. Basically, it is the ladies those who do sacrifices for their career. So when it come up as sacrifices, it is always the women and not the men. They will take some time out. They will take leave. But if it is like, okay, don't work for a year or two or resign something, it is generally the ladies in India.
Yep. If the children have temperature over 37.5, you're supposed to contact the parent. You don't want them to have a fit or anything, she said nervously. I came to my senses. Mayu must have thought I was blaming her. It's not that. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Holding Fataba in my arms, I punched the time card and left the daycare center. You want to stop here, Manisha, ma'am? Or do you want me to carry on? Okay, we'll stop there.
This chapter is as it is a little longer, so
Yeah, yeah. No, these chapters are long, so anyway, it has to happen in a few. Has to happen in a few sessions. So no. Okay, over to you.
yes, sir. I just want that. So it's about to be noon, so I'll say good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my good school. As you have come to know, the children, those who are especially attending for the first time, that we read 3 books on Sunday. 2 has already been done, and the last book for the day is from Ruskin Bond. रस्किन बॉन्ड की कहानियों में सबसे अच्छी बात यह होती है कि वो नेचर के बहुत पास होती है एंड लोगों के इर्द गिर्द रहती है। छोटी छोटी कहानियां हैं जो एक बार में खत्म भी हो जाती है। तो बेस्ट पार्ट यह है कि इसका रिकैप की उतनी जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है, क्योंकि हम हमेशा हर बारी नई कहानी स्टार्ट करते हैं। एंड चूंकि वो नई कहानी होती है, सुनने में भी अच्छी लगती है, समझने में भी, और इंट्रोस्पेक्ट करने के लिए। सो बिफोर आई स्टार्ट, मैंने ऑलरेडी अपना ईमेल आईडी पहले दे रखा है। तो आप लोग को जो भी रिफ्लेक्शन लिखना है, जो भी ये सेक्शन का आपका आउटकम है, वो आप लिख के मुझे ईमेल कर सकते हैं। जरूरी नहीं है कि बुक रीडिंग के ऊपर ही आप दें। आप कोई न्यू बुक पढ़ रहे हैं, उसके बारे में अपनी राय देना चाहते हैं, या आपने नेचर में कुछ देखा जो आपको बहुत अट्रैक्टिव लगा, बहुत ही अच्छा लगा, आप क्यूरियस हुए, आप वो भी हमें लिख करके दे सकते हैं। आप चाहे तो डूडल कर सकते हैं, एनिमेशन के थ्रू वीडियो बना सकते हैं, ऑडियो क्लिप दे सकते हैं, या लिख के दे सकते हैं। आप एक पिक्चर कार्ड पे 2 सेंटेंस भी लिख सकते हैं, वो भी हम रिफ्लेक्शन में काउंट करते हैं। ओनली थिंग इज कुछ लिख करके भेजना या कुछ ड्रॉ करके भेजना। वॉइस रिकॉर्डिंग भी आप दे सकते हैं, उसको भी हम अपलोड करेंगे। सो विद दिस, आज के हम चैप्टर को स्टार्ट करते हैं, रस्किन बॉन्ड की कहानी। कहानी का नाम है सुरंग। तो क्या आपको पता है सुरंग क्या होती है? सुरंग से हम क्या समझते हैं? और सुरंग आपने कहाँ पे देखी है? देखी है आप लोगों ने सुरंग? किसी ने देखी है? टर्नल, वेरी गुड। सो कहाँ पे आपने टर्नल देखी है? रेल की जर्नी करी है, सफर करा आप लोगों ने? विलेज में देखी है, ओके। और कहाँ देखी है?
मैम, शिमला के रास्ते में 102 सुरंगें आती हैं।
हाँ जी। तो हम जब जाते हैं शिमला के रास्ते में, तो 102 टर्नल्स या फिर सुरंगें आती हैं। तो सुरंगें बहुत ही सुंदर होती हैं, अंधेरा भी लगता है, और बहुत से बच्चे जब ट्रेन से सफर करते हैं तो वो खुश भी होते हैं देखने के लिए। मेरी स्क्रीन दिख रही है सबको? इज माई स्क्रीन विजिबल?
या।
ओके। तो चलिए हम पढ़ते हैं सुरंग की कहानी को। लगभग दोपहर हो चुकी थी और जंगल बहुत शांत, बहुत खामोश था। लू रेलवे के तटबंध पर तमतमा रही थी। रेलवे लाइन ऊंचे सदाबहार पेड़ों के बीच से रास्ता काट कर निकल रही थी। वह 2 सीधे काले सांपों जैसी थी, जो पहाड़ी की सुरंगों में गायब हो रहे थे। रंजी उस तटबंध के पास खड़ा होकर दोपहर वाली ट्रेन का इंतजार कर रहा था। यहाँ स्टेशन नहीं था और वह ट्रेन पकड़ने नहीं आया था। वह इंतजार कर रहा था ताकि वह भाप के इंजन को सुरंग से बाहर आते हुए देख सके। वह साइकिल से शहर से बाहर निकल गया था और जंगल का रास्ता पकड़कर एक छोटे से गांव में आ गया था। उसने साइकिल वहीं छोड़ दी। फिर वह एक नीची झाड़ झंकार से ढकी पहाड़ी पर और नीचे सुरंग के मुहाने तक चला गया था। अब उसने ऊपर देखा। उसे दूर से इंजन की तेज सीटी की आवाज सुनाई दी। वह कुछ भी नहीं देख सका, क्योंकि ट्रेन पहाड़ी की दूसरी ओर से आ रही थी, लेकिन तभी सुरंग से दूर की गड़गड़ाहट जैसी आवाज आई और वह जान गया कि ट्रेन आ रही है। 1 या 2 सेकंड बाद भाप का इंजन सुरंग से बाहर निकला, हरे, काले और सुनहरे ड्रैगन की तरह सूंघता और धुआं उगलता। रंजी के सपनों में से बाहर आए किसी सुंदर राक्षस की तरह, दाएं और बाएं चिंगारियां बरसाते हुए वह जंगल को चुनौती देने के लिए गरजा। सो मेटाफोरिकली कितने अच्छे से रस्किन बॉन्ड ने लिखा है कि जब सुरंग से ट्रेन आ रही थी तो उनका इंजन किस तरीके से दिख रहा था और रंजी को किस तरीके से समझ में आ रहा था कि वह एक ड्रैगन की तरह है, वो सूंघ रहा है, धुआं उगल रहा है। और बहुत ही प्यारे तरीके से इन्होंने कहानी की स्टार्टिंग करी है। सहज रूप से रंजी कुछ कदम पीछे हट गया। गर्म भाप की लहरें उनके चेहरे पर लगी, यहां तक कि पेड़ भी शोर और गर्मी से कांपने लगे। जब ट्रेन चली गई तो शीशम के ऊंचे पेड़ों पर आलसी होकर उड़ने के लिए केवल धुएं का गुब्बार छोड़ गई। जंगल फिर से स्थिर हो गया, अब कोई नहीं हिल रहा था। तो जब ट्रेन आई थी तब ट्रेन के ही कारण पेड़ पौधे हिलने लगे थे, और जब ट्रेन चली गई तब एकदम सारे तरफ शांति छा गई। रंजी उड़ते हुए धुएं को देखकर मुड़ा और तटबंध के साथ सुरंग की ओर चलने लगा। वह जितना आगे बढ़ता गया, सुरंग और अंधियारी होती गई, और जब वह लगभग 20 गज की दूरी पर चला गया तो वहां घोर अंधेरा हो गया। उसे ये सुनिश्चित करने के लिए पीछे मुड़कर देखना पड़ा कि कहीं दूर दिन की रोशनी है। उसने आगे सुरंग के दूसरे द्वार पर भी रोशनी का एक छोटा सा गोल घेरा था। सुरंग की दीवारें नम और चिपचिपी थी। एक चमगादड़ उड़ा, लाइन पर एक छिपकली फिसल गई। अंधेरे से सीधे उजाले में आते हुए रणजीत की आंखें अचानक चकाचौंध हो गई। उसने अपने आंखों पर ओट करने के लिए हाथ ऊपर किया और झाड़ी से ढकी पहाड़ी की ओर देखा। तब उसे लगा कि उसने पेड़ों के बीच कुछ हिलता हुआ देखा है। वह सिर्फ सुनहरे और काले रंग की चमक थी और एक लंबी लहराती हुई पूंछ थी। वह वहां पेड़ों के बीच 1 या 2 सेकंड के लिए थी, फिर चली गई। सुरंग के प्रवेश द्वार से करीब 50 फुट की दूरी पर चौकीदार की झोपड़ी थी। झोपड़ी के सामने गेंदे के फूल उगे थे और पीछे एक छोटा सा सब्जी का खेत था। सुरंग की निगरानी करना और उसे बाधाओं से मुक्त रखना चौकीदार का काम था। हर दिन ट्रेन के आने से पहले वह पूरी सुरंग पार करता था। अगर सब कुछ ठीक रहता तो वह अपनी झोपड़ी में लौट आता और एक झपकी ले लेता। अगर कुछ गलत होता तो वह लाइन से वापस चला जाता और लाल झंडा लहराता। तब चालक इंजन की गति धीमी कर देता। रात में चौकीदार तेल का लैंप जलाकर निगरानी करता था। अगर ट्रेन को कोई खतरा होता तो वह लाइन में वापस चला जाता और पास आ रहे इंजन की ओर लैंप से इशारे करता। सब ठीक रहता तो वह झोपड़ी के दरवाजे पर लैंप लगाकर सो जाता। कभी आप लोगों के साथ ऐसा हुआ है कि आपको कुछ काम दिया गया है और आप उस चिंता में कभी सो नहीं पा रहे हैं, या क्यूरियोसिटी के लिए आपने उस काम को किसी और ही तरीके से खत्म किया हो, या फिर कुछ नए तरीके निकाले उसको सॉल्व करने के लिए, जैसे कि यहाँ पे चौकीदार कर रहा था। उसे सुरंग चेक करनी थी कि ट्रेन अच्छे से गुजर जाए, कोई एक्सीडेंट नहीं हो, कोई परेशानी नहीं हो। तो इसके लिए वो रोज एक चक्कर लगाता था और लगा करके वापस आता था। अगर सब कुछ ठीक रहा तो सो जाता था, नहीं तो वो लाल झंडे को लहराता था या फिर लाइट लगाता था। तो ऐसा कभी आपके साथ हुआ कि आप लोगों ने ऐसा कुछ किया हो, जो आपको काम दिया गया उसके लिए क्यूरियस हो के आपने कोई नया तरीका अपनाया हो? घर पे या स्कूल में कभी कोई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के समय आपने क्या किया? कुछ किया है आपने? कोई बताना चाहेगा? आप चैट बॉक्स में भी लिख सकते हैं। हम्म। जिम्मेदारी तो कभी ना कभी आप लोग को मिली ही होगी, तो क्या किया आप लोगों ने? चलिए फिर आगे देखते हैं चैप्टर में क्या हुआ।
मैम
हाँ जी, बताइए।
मैम मेरे साथ कल हुआ था। मैंने कल एक वर्ली आर्ट ड्राइंग के लिए सोचा था, तो मैं वो बहुत ज़्यादा डिफिकल्ट था, पर मैंने उसको टाइम को डिवाइड करके किया कि मैं सुबह में इतना बनाऊंगी, दोपहर में इतना और शाम में इतना।
वेरी गुड। बहुत ही अच्छा किया आपने, क्योंकि एक साथ आप अगर आप एक साथ बनाते तो कैसा लगता तलत?
मैम तो वो अच्छे से नहीं बन पाता, और मैंने ब्रेक अगर मैं नहीं लेती तो वो मेरे से उसमें नहीं बन पाता।
वेरी गुड तलत। अगर आप एक बार में पूरा काम खत्म करने की कोशिश करते तो पूरा नहीं हो पाता, उतना सुंदर नहीं बन पाता। तो अब आप मुझे अपने वर्ली आर्ट की फोटो जरूर भेजिएगा, जैसे कि मैं उसको अपने वेबसाइट में हम लोग उसको पब्लिश कर सके, बाकी बच्चों को भी हम दिखाएं। ठीक है तलत? और
ओके
साथ
मैम।
में कुछ उसके साथ दो तीन सेंटेंसेस भी लिखिएगा, जैसे कि पता चले कि आपने बनाया। हर दिन ट्रेन के आने से पहले वो पूरी सुरंग पार करता था। ओके, पढ़ लिया मैंने। वह दोपहर की नींद के लिए अपनी खाट पर बैठ ही रहा था कि उसने देखा कि लड़का सुरंग से बाहर आ रहा है। उसने तब तक इंतजार किया जब तक कि लड़का कुछ फुट दूर रह गया। फिर उसने कहा, स्वागत है, स्वागत है। यहाँ अक्सर कोई नहीं आता। थोड़ी देर बैठो और मुझे बताओ कि तुम मेरी सुरंग की निगरानी क्यों कर रहे थे। क्या ये आपकी सुरंग है? रंजी ने पूछा। हाँ है, चौकीदार ने कहा। ये वास्तव में मेरी सुरंग है, क्योंकि इससे किसी और का कोई लेना देना नहीं है। मैंने इसे केवल सरकार को उधार दिया है। रंजी खाट के किनारे बैठ गया। मैं ट्रेन से आते देखना चाहता था, उसने कहा, और ट्रेन से निकल जाने के बाद मैंने सुरंग में जाने का फैसला किया। और तुमने इसमें क्या पाया? कुछ नहीं। बहुत अंधेरा था, लेकिन जब मैं बाहर आया तो मुझे लगा कि मैंने पहाड़ी पर एक जानवर को देखा है। लेकिन मैं यकीन से नहीं कह सकता, क्योंकि वह बहुत जल्दी चला गया। फिर तुमने देखा था, जिसे तुमने देखा था वह एक तेंदुआ था, चौकीदार ने कहा। मेरा तेंदुआ? क्या आपके पास तेंदुआ भी है? हाँ है। और क्या आप उसे भी सरकार को उधार देते हो? नहीं देता। क्या वह खतरनाक है? अगर उसे अकेला छोड़ दो तो वह खतरनाक नहीं है। वह हर महीने कुछ दिन के लिए इस तरफ आता है, क्योंकि इस जंगल में अब भी हिरन है और हिरन उसका कुदरती शिकार है। वह लोगों से दूर रहता है। क्या आप यहाँ काफी समय से हैं? रंजी ने पूछा। कई साल से। मेरा नाम किशन सिंह है। मेरा नाम रंजी है। एक ट्रेन दिन में आती है और एक ट्रेन रात में आती है। क्या तुमने नाइट मेल को सुरंग से आते देखा है? नहीं। यह किस समय तक आती है? अगर लेट ना हुई तो करीब 9 बजे। तुम चाहो तो यहाँ आकर मेरे साथ बैठ सकते हो। ट्रेन चले जाने के बाद मैं तुम्हें घर छोड़ दूंगा। मैं अपने माता पिता से पूछूंगा, रंजी ने कहा। क्या वह सुरक्षित रहेगा? कस्बे की तुलना में जंगल ज्यादा सुरक्षित है। यहाँ कोई बदमाश नहीं है। पिछले हफ्ते ही जब मैं शहर गया था तो मेरी जेब कट गई। तेंदुए जेब नहीं काटते। किशन सिंह अपनी खाट पर पसर गया। फिर अब मैं एक झपकी लेने जा रहा हूँ मेरे दोस्त। दोपहर में इतनी गर्मी हो जाती है कि उठना और कुछ करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है। दोपहर में सब सो जाते हैं, रंजी ने शिकायत करी। मेरे पिता दोपहर का भोजन करते ही लेट जाते हैं। ठीक है, जानवर भी दिन की गर्मी में आराम करते हैं। केवल लड़कों की जमात आराम नहीं कर सकती या नहीं करेगी। मक्खियों को दूर रखने के लिए किशन सिंह ने केले का एक बड़ा सा पत्ता अपने चेहरे पर रख लिया और धीरे धीरे खर्राटे लेने लगा। ऊपर और नीचे रेल की पटरियां देखते हुए रंजी उठ खड़ा हुआ। उसके बाद वह वापस गांव की ओर चलने लगा। ऐसा क्यों होता है कि गर्मी के दिनों में ज्यादातर, अगर सबकी छुट्टियां हैं या संडे का दिन है, तो बड़े तो सो जाते हैं घर पे, पर बच्चे नहीं सोते। और फिर जब स्कूल के दिनों में उन्हें हम उठाते हैं सुबह, तो वो सुबह तो जल्दी नहीं उठते हैं, पर संडे के दिन उनकी नींद बहुत जल्दी खुल जाती है। तो आप बताएंगे मुझे कि ऐसा क्यों होता है कि संडे आपकी नींद इतनी, या छुट्टी वाले दिन तो आप सुबह उठ जाते हैं, पर स्कूल के दिनों में कई बार आपको लगता है कि थोड़ी देर और सो लो, 10 मिनट और, 5 मिनट और। तो इसके पीछे रीजन क्या है?
निशा मैम, ये बहुत अच्छा सवाल है। तो मेरे को भी इसका जवाब अभी तक मिला नहीं है।
तो आज हमारे सारे बच्चे बताएंगे इसके पीछे रीजन क्या है।
मैम एक्साइटमेंट की वजह से।
यस, एक्साइटमेंट। किस चीज की एक्साइटमेंट?
मैम इस चीज की कि कल संडे है तो हम लोग और मस्ती करेंगे।
हाँ जी, संडे का दिन है, पढ़ाई करनी नहीं है, तो हम बहुत मस्ती करेंगे, वी वांट टू प्ले। तो इसलिए संडे हमारी नींद या छुट्टियों वाले दिन तो जल्दी खुल जाती है, एंड सुबह के समय नहीं, बाकी स्कूल के दिनों में।
करेक्ट, seems like a logical answer.
सर, ये बच्चों के साथ ही हमारे साथ भी होता है सर। अगर आप थोड़ा सा ध्यान दें तो
हम्म।
किसी भी छुट्टी वाले दिन हम सोना तो पसंद करते हैं सुबह, पर नींद और दिनों से जल्दी खुल जाती है। बिकॉज कहीं ना कहीं हमारी बॉडी हमें बोल देती है कि नेक्स्ट डे तो छुट्टी है, कुछ जल्दी की कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। तो हमें नींद भी शायद बहुत अच्छी आती है रात को, एंड साउंड स्लीप होने के कारण हम सुबह बहुत फ्रेश फील करते हैं। सो व्हाट इज योर ओपिनियन ऑन दिस?
हाँ, मतलब होता है, अब तो मेरे साथ काफी होता है कि वीकेंड में मैं जल्दी उठ जाता हूँ और मतलब दिक्कत नहीं होती। वीकडे में लगता है अच्छा सो, थोड़ा और सो लो, थोड़ा और सो लो, वीकडे में ऐसे होता है, बट वीकेंड में हाँ, यू आर राइट, आई थिंक दिस इज द रीजन। करेक्ट।
अगली शाम सांझ बेला में जैसे ही उड़ती लोमड़ियां चुपचाप पेड़ों से बाहर निकली, रंजी चौकीदार की झोपड़ी की ओर चल दिया। वह एक लंबा गर्म दिन था, लेकिन अब धरती ठंडी हो रही थी और पेड़ों के बीच से हल्की हवा चल रही थी। हवा अपने साथ आम की खिलने की महक और बारिश का वादा लेकर आ रही थी। किशन सिंह रणजी का इंतजार कर रहा था। उसने अपने छोटे से बगीचे को सींचा था। वहां फूल ठंडे और ताजे लग रहे थे। स्टोव पर एक केतली में चाय उबल रही थी। मैं चाय बना रहा हूँ, उसने कहा। ट्रेन के इंतजार में एक ग्लास गरम मीठी चाय जैसा अच्छा कुछ नहीं होता। उन्होंने दर्जी चिड़ियों की चहचहाट और सात सितारों की गपशप सुनते हुए चाय पी। जैसे ही थोड़े समय रही गोधूली फीकी पड़ी, अधिकांश पक्षी चुप हो गए। किशन ने अपना लैंप जलाया और कहा कि उसके लिए सुरंग की निगरानी करने का समय आ गया है। वह अंधेरे प्रवेश द्वार की ओर चला गया, जबकि रंजी खाट पर बैठकर चाय की चुस्की लेता रहा। अंधेरे में पेड़ के करीब आते लग रहे थे, और जंगल की रात की जिंदगी, हवा के झोंके, भौंकने वाले हिरन की तेज आवाज, लोमड़ी की आवाज और रात्रि चरों की विचित्र टक टक से सजीव हो रही थी। कुछ आवाजों को रंजी पहचान नहीं पाया। पेड़ों से आने वाली आवाजें, चटकन चटकियां और फुसफुसाहटें, मानो पेड़ जिंदा हो रहे हो, अंधेरे में अपने अंगों को फैला रहे थे, थोड़ा हिल रहे थे, अपनी उंगलियों को फड़फड़ा रहे थे। किशन सिंह सुरंग के बाहर खड़ा होकर अपना लैपटॉप ठीक कर रहा था। रात की आवाजें उससे परिचित थी और उससे उन पर ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं दिया, लेकिन यह कुछ और था। एक गद्देदार पैर और सूखे पत्तों की सरसराहट। जो वो कुछ सेकंड के लिए कान लगाकर खड़ा हो गया। उसने अंधेरे में झांका, फिर धीरे से गुनगुनाते हुए जहां रंजी इंतजार कर रहा था वहां लौट आया। नाइट मेल आने में अभी कुछ मिनट बाकी थे। जैसे ही चौकीदार रंजी के पास खाट पर बैठा, एक नई आवाज उन दोनों के पास बिल्कुल स्पष्ट रूप से आ पहुंची। एक लयबद्ध आरी की आवाज, जैसे कोई पेड़ की शाखा को काट रहा है। यह क्या है? रंजी फुसफुसाया। वह तेंदुआ है, किशन सिंह ने कहा। मुझे लगता है कि वह सुरंग में है। ट्रेन जल्द ही यहाँ आ जाएगी। हाँ दोस्त, और अगर हम तेंदुए को सिर्फ सुरंग से बाहर नहीं निकालेंगे तो वह इंजन से कुचल जाएगा। लेकिन अगर हमने उसे बाहर निकालने की कोशिश की तो क्या वह हम पर हमला नहीं करेगा? चौकीदार की चिंता को समझते हुए रणजी ने पूछा। वह मुझे अच्छी तरह जानता है। हमने एक दूसरे को कई बार देखा है। मुझे नहीं लगता कि वह हमला करेगा। फिर भी मैं अपनी कुल्हाड़ी साथ ले जाऊंगा। बेहतर होगा कि तुम यहीं रहो रंजी। नहीं, मैं भी जाऊंगा। यहाँ अंधेरे में अकेले बैठने से अच्छा है कि मैं साथ चलूं। ठीक है, लेकिन मेरे पीछे रहो और याद रखना, डरने की कोई बात नहीं है। अपना लैंप उठा के किशन सिंह जानवर को भगाने की कोशिश करने और डराने के लिए जोर से चिल्लाते हुए सुरंग में चला गया। रंजी उसके पीछे पीछे गया, लेकिन उसने पाया कि वह चिल्ला नहीं पा रहा था। उसका गला काफी सूख गया था। वे सुरंग में करीब 20 कदम ही चले थे कि लैंप की रोशनी तेंदुए पर पड़ी। वह पट्टियों के बीच में दुबका हुआ था। उसने केवल 15 फुट की दूरी पर अपने दांतों को खोलकर और गुर्राते हुए वह अपने पेट के बल और नीचे तक पसर गया। उसकी पूंछ फड़फड़ा रही थी। रंजी को यकीन था कि वह उन पर हमला करने वाला है। किशन सिंह और रंजी दोनों एक साथ चिल्लाए। सुरंग से उनकी आवाजें सुनाई दी और तेंदुआ समझ नहीं पाया कि उनके सामने कितने भयानक इंसान थे। वह तेजी से मुड़ा और अंधेरे में गायब हो गया। रंजी और चौकीदार ने यह सुनिश्चित करने के लिए पूरी सुरंग पार की कि वह चला गया है। जब वे प्रवेश द्वार पर लौटे तो पटरियां थरथराने लगी थी। उन्हें पता था कि ट्रेन आ रही है। रंजी ने अपना हाथ एक पटरी पर रखा और उसका कंपन महसूस किया। उसने दूर से ट्रेन की गड़गड़ाहट सुनी और फिर मोड़ पर इंजन नजर आया। वह उन पर फुफकारते हुए, अंधेरे में चिंगारी बिखेरते हुए, जंगल को धत्ता बताते हुए कटाव के खड़े किनारों पर गरजा। वह सीधे सुरंग में घुस गया। रंजी ने सपनों के सुंदर ड्रैगन की तरह गरजता हुआ वह चला गया तो सन्नाटा लौट आया और जंगल फिर से सांस लेने लगा। ट्रेन के गुजरने से पटरियां अब भी कांप रही थी। लगभग एक हफ्ते के बाद जब रंजी और उसके पिता दोनों उस ट्रेन में सफर कर रहे थे तो वे फिर से वहां से ट्रेन के गुजरने पर कांप उठे। रंजी के पिता एक नोटबुक में कुछ लिख रहे थे, हिसाब किताब कर रहे थे। एक खुली दरवा खिड़की के पास बैठकर अंधेरे को घूरते हुए रंजी ने सोचा कि वह कितना बोरिंग है। उसके पिता कारोबार के सिलसिले में दिल्ली जा रहे थे और उन्होंने लड़की को साथ ले जाने का फैसला किया था। यह समय है जब तुम्हें कारोबार के बारे में कुछ सीखना चाहिए, उन्होंने रंजी को निराश करते हुए कहा। नाइट मेल अपने सैकड़ों यात्रियों के साथ जंगल में दौड़ती रही। गांव के पहिए पटरियों पर एक स्थित लय पैदा करते हैं। जंगल के किनारे छोटे छोटे गांवों में गुजरते हुए छोटी छोटी झिलमिलाती रोशनी आती और चली जाती है। जैसे ही ट्रेन एक छोटे से पुल के ऊपर से गुजरी, रंजी ने गड़गड़ाहट सुनी। तटबंध के पास झोपड़ी देखने के लिए बहुत अंधेरा था, लेकिन वह जानता था कि वे सुरंग के पास पहुंच ही रहे। उसने रात में बाहर देखते हुए अपनी आंखें मली। फिर जैसे ही इंजन ने एक तेज सीटी बजाई, रंजी ने लैंप देखा। वह किशन सिंह को नहीं देख सका, लेकिन उसने लैंप को देखा और वह जानता था कि उसका दोस्त बाहर है। ट्रेन सुरंग में चली गई और फिर से बाहर निकल गई। उसने जंगल के पीछे छोड़ दिया और अंतहीन मैदानों से गुजरती हुई और रंजी जंगल में अकेले तटबंध के बारे में सोचता रहा। लैंप वाले चौकीदार के बारे में सोचता रहा, जो हजारों यात्रियों के लिए हमेशा एक जुगनू बना रहेगा, क्योंकि उसने भाप के इंजनों और तेंदुओं के लिए अंधेरे को रोशन किया था। तो यहाँ पे ये कहानी खत्म होती है। तो मैं आप सबसे ये पूछना चाहूंगी कि हमने कहानी में देखा कि किस तरीके से अपने काम को करने का जुनून था इन दोनों को, और अपने जुनून के कारण वो हर बार चक्कर लेते थे और यहाँ तक कि अपनी जान को भी हथेली में रख करके वो पूरे सुरंग में जा रहे थे, जबकि उन्हें पता था कि तेंदुआ है वहां पे और तेंदुआ उन्हें मार भी सकता है। तो ऐसा कभी आप लोगों ने कभी किया है कि आपको पता है कि कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है, बट किसी को हेल्प करने के लिए आउट ऑफ द वे आप लोग गए और जा करके आपने हेल्प करी किसी की? कभी ऐसी कोई घटना घटी है जो आप शेयर करना चाहेंगे? स्कूल में, घर में, या आपकी फैमिली में किसी ने ऐसा कुछ किया हो? जुगजीत सर, आप कुछ शेयर करना चाहेंगे?
I was thinking, but I can't find, couldn't think of anything, कुछ याद नहीं आ रहा. बट मेरे को याद है, एक मेरे ब्रदर इन लॉ ने एक कुनूर में मतलब ऐसे कोई क्या किसी पे हमला हुआ था और उसने जाके उनको बचाया था. जस्ट ये मेरे को याद आ रहा था कि उस मतलब जो बहुत जोखिम वाला काम था, पर उसने मतलब कर दिया था. बहुत पहले मेरे को याद आ रहा है कि हाँ, बस आई कांट थिंक ऑफ एनीथिंग एल्स.
तो
हमला हो रहा था और उन्होंने जाके बेसिकली किसी को बचाया था. जो भी हमलावर था वो भाग गया. और याद आ.
ऐसा सर कई बार ही बहुत कुछ हुआ है। एक छोटा सा इंसिडेंट मैं भी शेयर करना चाहूंगी स्टूडेंट एंड टीचर के रिलेशनशिप पे। एक स्कूल में बारिश का टाइम था सर। रेसिडेंशियल स्कूल में तो आपको पता ही है, टीचर्स एंड स्टूडेंट सब साथ में ही रहते हैं। तो ये एक देहरादून के किसी एक स्कूल की बात है। तो कूलर रखा हुआ था डाइनिंग हॉल के बाहर। तो कूलर स्विच लगा हुआ था पर स्विच ऑफ था। बट जैसे ही एक टीचर अंदर गया, उन्होंने हाथ रखा अपना कूलर के ऊपर। बट चूंकि बारिश का टाइम था, सब चीजें गीली थी, हाथ उस टीचर का भी हाथ गीला ही होगा। तो उन्होंने जैसे ही हाथ रखा तो उनको करंट लग गया। अब अपने टीचर को करंट पे देख के सब बच्चे चिल्लाने लगे, परेशान होने लगे। बट उसमें से एक बच्चा था जिसने हिम्मत दिखा के अपने टीचर को, जो करंट का शॉक था उससे बचाने के लिए, सर को उन्होंने खींच के पीछे गिरा दिया। वो बच्चा पहले से ही थोड़ा बीमार था, बट उसने ये सब चीज की परवाह नहीं करी और अपने टीचर को बचाया। वरना वो शौक तो बहुत ज्यादा भी हो सकता था। एंड थोड़ा और भी ज्यादा वो बच्चा बीमार हो गया, उसके हार्ट में पहले से ही छेद था। बट वो किसी भी चीज की उसने फिक्र नहीं करी, और वो जुनून के कारण, अपने टीचर को बचाने के जुनून के चक्कर में, उसने काफी उस समय तक आगे बढ़ करके मदद करी। तो ये टीचर एंड स्टूडेंट के बीच के एक छोटा सा रिलेशनशिप भी है, एंड बच्चों की जुनून भी है, जिसमें वो चाहते हैं कि सब लोग सेफ रहे, आप और आपस में प्यार से रहें, और सेफ्टी को ध्यान में रखते हुए उसने ये सब चीजें करी। तो ये छोटा सा इंसिडेंट था।
ये सुरंग तो मोहन के सुरंग होगी है.
क्या? सॉरी सर।
ये जो सुरंग है कहानी में, मेरे को लगता है ये मोहन की सुरंग होगी.
तो सुरंग में ऐसे भी देहरादून जाते समय जंगल जो पड़ता है, वहां पे कई बार हाथी भी आ जाते हैं। तो रात को जो बसों से जाते हैं इधर यूपी की तरफ से देहरादून की तरफ, तो हरिद्वार के पहले जो ये जंगल वाले एरिया रहता है, बहुत से लोगों ने हाथियों को देखा है। और कई बार हाथियों को जगह नहीं देने पे हाथी गाड़ी को पलट भी देते थे। और एक्सीडेंट्स तो कई बार ही हुए चिड़ियापुर के आसपास की जगह पे, जो देहरादून से पहले है। वहां पे कई बार ही एलिफेंट्स के चक्कर में हुए हैं प्रॉब्लम। तो लोग डरते भी हैं, बट उनमें से कुछ जाबाज लोग भी हैं जो लोगों को बचाने के लिए आगे भी बढ़ते हैं। तो फिर यस, जाबाज सब बने रहें, आगे खुश रहें। इस नोट के साथ आई एंड टुडेज सेशन। चूंकि आप जानते हैं कि मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि आप लोग कुछ लिख करके भेजते हैं जो हम अपने वेबसाइट पे पब्लिश करें। मैं मानती हूँ कि छुट्टियों के चक्कर में आप लोग को होमवर्क भी काफी मिला होगा, बट अपने किस तरीके से आप छुट्टियां बिता रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, कहाँ घूमने जा रहे हैं या कहाँ घूम के आए हैं, इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा कुछ आप लिख के भेजें, जैसे बाकी लोगों को भी पता चले और हम सब आपकी खुशी में शामिल हो सके। विद दिस, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग। We'll meet the next week. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care.